From man's sweat and God's love, beer came into the world. Amen.
All right, let's chop it up. How's it going?
It's going. I applied on Monday.
What?
I applied on Monday.
Oh, you got it in?
Yep. Turned it in. I've only refreshed my page probably 2,000 times.
Did they give you any kind of idea how long it'll take, or is it just... you said it was first come, first serve, isn't it?
Yeah, they just so they look at it. So it's not like first come, first serve, but it's first come, first serve as to like whether you're accepted or not. So like, so they'll give mine a glance and either admit or deny me based off of that. So I emailed them yesterday, maybe 2 days ago. I emailed them and was just like, hey, what's the timeline? Well, I know. And like, I was like, it had said before there was like a week or two. And I was like, is that for this or am I going to have to wait till April when the deadline closes or whatnot? And they were like, I got an email back that said, we're reviewing some of the, like a couple of people are serving their dissertations, whatever they're defending their dissertations this week. And so they're like, so just give us like a week or two and then we'll get it back to you. So that's so probably March I'll know. So, which works. No big deal. I'll just twiddle my thumbs until then. But yeah, staying hopeful. We'll see. I think that's pretty much the only thing that's new with me, as far as I know.
So this is the first time I'm not going to spend a lot of time on I'm not going to talk about the Super Bowl at all. It's too late. It was 2 weeks ago. I'm over it already.
Did you have a good time?
We had a good time.
There you go.
We had a good time. We had a good trip. Yeah. Spent some time at several breweries. Got to meet in person some of our photographers. Most of my photographers, 90% of the photographers I work with, I've never even spoken to on the phone. It's very strange. There's a joke. I mean, I was even kidding around when we were up there that probably half our photographers think I'm just this AI agent that they're interacting with at Icon. Like Tim Curley doesn't actually exist. He's just this chat bot that Icon set up to interact with photographers. And there's reasons for that. One, I hate talking on the phone. Two, I don't have time to talk on the phone because when I talk on the phone with a photographer, they want to speak for like an hour. And so, which I don't blame them, but I just have to really be mindful of my time. So
yeah, Tim is not a talk on the phone guy.
No.
I was like, there are people that just don't like to talk on the phone. And when you get on the phone with them, you know that they don't want to be on the phone. Tim is one of those people. Eric Pedersen is one of those people. Eric hates talking on the phone. You get him on the phone, he'd be like, hey. He'd be like,
I'm not that bad.
And he'd be like, okay, so I was like trying to do it. And he'd be like, okay, yeah. Like he tries to keep everything to one word answers.
I don't do that, but I do keep it to like, what's up? Just what are we talking?
Don't get me wrong.
Discussing?
There are those that you can't get off the phone.
Then there are people you can't get off the phone.
Nolan is one of those people. Nolan loves to talk on the phone. And so he will like, you'll get like the linger kind of thing. And then if you're like, all right, well, it'll be like, yeah.
Yeah, right when you're like, okay, you're like trying to like politely end it. Like Jamie does the same thing. And Jamie, I've known Jamie long enough where I can tell him like, enough. We've talked about this already, or I really have to go, even if I don't really have to go, but I'm done with the conversation. So
yeah, it's great. I mean, I've grown up in a household, or like my family growing up, my grandma was a big phone talker and she talked for forever. And so it's always a joke. And like, I don't know. There's something about those Tipton Pixley people where they got the gift of gab and they have no problem talking for the next, 10 years. And so I was like, if Nolan was here, Nolan would not be offended by any of this. Like, he'd be like, no, yeah, that's exactly, like, I like talking to people. And so, yeah, there are times where text is so impersonal that, like, phone calls are great for stuff. So, I don't know. Nolan and I talk on the phone occasionally, and we'll chat for half an hour to an hour. So, I mean, that's good. But
I think it's my introvert side that doesn't like the phone.
That's fair.
Because even though I can be chatty on here and I can be chatty in other settings, I can also be very not chatty. So, anyway, yeah, Super Bowl went well.
Nice.
Got really good feedback from clients, and Chris was amazed at how well we did. Excuse me. So that's done. Now we're looking for start of baseball and MLS and women's soccer league and spring football league, whatever the hell that's called. UFL now. They keep changing the name. UFL. I got conference basketball tournaments coming up. March Madness. And then Vegas in 3 weeks.
Yep.
Month. I think it's a month. I think it's later in March.
I think yeah. I think it's
Actually, there's about 3 weeks. We just had our meeting about it this week. So
yeah, you guys are going back to back, right? For Vegas and then Pliny.
yeah, we're going back to back. It'll be Vegas and then Pliny.
Whew.
So
Good luck.
Vegas won't be as arduous as it has been the last 7-8 years. They've gone back to the schedule that it was when I first started working for the track, which is just a Xfinity race and then the Cup race.
It's not trucks. There's
no trucks. There is high limit dirt racing on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but I don't have to be there for that. So if I don't, Nolan will probably want to go. Eric will probably have to go for one night, but I could skip out on that and to keep the days from being so long. And then the races both start midday at around 1. They don't start late, so we'll be done earlier in the day too. So
nice.
That'll be nice. So we might as well do first beer of the week. It's a beer I brought back from the Super Bowl trip. Nolan and I stopped at Almanac. Almanac has multiple locations. We stopped at the one in Alameda. There's Alameda, I think it's Alameda Naval Station, something like that. It's a former Navy base that's been, and it might still be partially a Navy base. Anyway, when you go on there, it looks like a Navy base. The guard gate's up and everything. They are leasing out buildings that used to be used by the Defense Department or contractors for businesses, and that includes Faction Brewing Company, which we've had, I think, 2 beers of on this show, and they're pretty they're usually pretty good at their IPAs. Brought some of those back too, and then around the corner there were 2 other breweries. We didn't make it in the other one, but we stopped at Almanac. I guess that might be their main location. No, that is their main location. They are at Alameda, so that's their main location. That might be their only one now I think about it. Anyway, brought some beer back, and one of them that we're having tonight is the Almanac. It's a collab, Almanac with Pond Farm Brewing Company. It is the Amarillo Rye West Coast IPA, dry hopped with Amarillo, Simcoe, and Centennial hops, brewed at 6.5% ABV, and it's delicious. Tastes very similar to a Russian River IPA.
Yes, it does. It is really good.
And I would we should think about some kind of beer to make with those 3 hops in the future. Amarillo, Simcoe. I'm going to keep the can to remind us. It's just very drinkable.
Yes, it is.
It's a nice, it's, if you're listening to this, you're like, what does Russian River adjacent mean? Well, if you haven't had Russian River, it's a little hard to explain, but there's a flavor profile that Russian River has achieved where I think they've perfected balancing out bitter with juicy. Would you agree with that?
I don't know. They make a IPA that tastes lighter than, I don't know, that's just what I'd say. I don't know about juicy, but
This one seems to have that like balance of the two.
sure. Tastes like an IPA with lots of flavor that's still light.
This reminds me of the, what is it? Gold row. What's the one they make just once a year in like May or something? Or no, they have it I think for sale when we're there, Pliny. And they're like the hops are only available like one time a year or something. I think they make the hops. Anyway, it reminds me of that one.
I don't know.
Anyway, all right. What do we got? What else we got tonight? Any trivia?
Were we going to do what are you going to talk about?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
So we lost Robert Duvall this week.
Yeah.
He might be my favorite actor. And in a lot of ways, I think he's one of those actors we underappreciated because he was so easy. He's so good at it and easy. And then he did all kinds of movies. He didn't do just like hoity-toity, arty Oscar Best Picture movies. He was willing to kind of do anything. I think he just liked working. Like, he was hilarious as the father in Four Christmases, playing the crotchety, drunk father of Vince Vaughn. But man, what a career! What an actor and vocal Christian. I have no idea when he became a Christian. I don't know if he identified as a Christian his entire life. I've never read partially he didn't seem very private. I just never read anything. I honestly haven't looked it up, but I haven't read anything to say like when he became a Christian, identified as a believer. But so I don't know if that was something that he was his entire life or something that came later on. But somewhere in the late 90s, early 2000s, he started being more open about it. Or maybe that's when he became Christian. Again, I don't know. So I'm going to do, it's not a ranked order. I didn't rank these. So this isn't like my top 15 from 15 to 1. I just wrote down my 15 favorite Robert Duvall movies. Most of them are based on them being fantastic movies. And then there's one or two that are just like my favorite. They're not necessarily great, but I think people should watch them or I'm endeared to them. So they are, if anything, it's just more like in numeric order. Yeah, that's what we'll go by. So we're going to go from newest to oldest. How about that? And then you can judge what you think is the best. Starting with number 1, The Judge, 2014. That's him as the father of Robert Downey Jr. They're both attorneys and they have an estranged relationship, and Robert Downey Jr. finds himself having to take care of his father as his father's dying. I'll leave it at that. It's very heartfelt, emotional movie. Both of them are fantastic. It also stars Garofalo, not Garofalo. Anyway, very good movie. Number 2, Secondhand Lions, 2003. Great movie.
Fantastic movie.
I feel like that was a big movie for a lot of people your age, Colton.
Came out when we were kids.
Yeah, but it seemed like that was a really good family movie that families could watch together and had an impact for both kids and adults.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Same year, Open Range. Fantastic Western. Proof again that Westerns can still be made, and this one's really gritty. It's got a nice sense of humor peppered in with it, but it's him and I'm blanking on the name, starring Kevin Costner, starring as these cattle wranglers moving across, and they run across big business baddie basically, and they go to war with each other, and he's just fantastic in it. 1997, The Apostle. He stars in this. He wrote it and he directed this movie. He stars as basically like a Pentecostal pastor who kills his wife's lover, goes on the lam, reinvents himself as a preacher in Louisiana, and through that process deals with his sin and his redemption for his multitude of sins, but also, he's a fallen preacher of the gospel, and it's a wonderful presentation of the gospel, of how it's meant for fallen people. It's not meant for, these squeaky clean pastors that we see. Unfortunately, time and time again, pastors are fallen people. It has some amazing, very emotional scenes where he brings people to Christ. It's just, I really recommend it. If that would be maybe at the top of my list of his best movie. And again, he wrote it and directed it as well. You can really see his belief in Jesus come through that in that movie. We're going to jump down to 1990, Days of Thunder. Who couldn't love him in Days of Thunder as the crew chief? Name escapes me, but he's fantastic in that with Tom Cruise. Again, he just always delivered the blend of crotchety and funny at the same time in so many of his roles, and he does that so well in Days of Thunder. 1989. This isn't a movie. It's a miniseries, but it's got to be included. Lonesome Dove. He co-stars with Tommy Lee Jones and a whole other host of characters. It's based on a book, and I think I read that the author literally based the character that Robert Duvall portrays on Robert Duvall. So when the author was writing the book, what's his name? I can't remember that author's name. Anyway, when he was writing the book, he had Robert Duvall in mind for that character in his mind's eye. So 1983, Tender Mercies, broken down middle-aged country singer gets a new life. He reaches out to his long-lost daughter, tries to put his life back together. Just another heart. So many of his movies were really heartfelt, and his natural acting ability just really made it where he drew you in. 1970, MASH. He plays Frank Burns. If you are a lover of the TV show, or even if you're a lover of the TV show, sorry, the movie is way funnier. If you've never seen either, I implore everyone to see the movie MASH. It is one of the funniest movies of all time, and there's a lot going on. You have to watch it two or three times to catch what's going on. But Frank Burns stars with Elliot Gould and Donald Sutherland and a couple other people, and he is hysterical as the straight-laced, no-fun Frank Burns. 1972, I'm going to put Godfather and Godfather 2 in the same category, same role. Both are fantastic. They're amazing. Godfather came out in 72. I think Godfather 2 came out 2-3 years later. Anyway, he plays Tom Hagen, basically the adopted Irish son of Vito Corleone, and for a while his consigliere and the family attorney, and he's fantastic in the role. I did get a little bit out of order. Okay, going back, 1979, The Great Santini. This is based on an autobiography. It's told through the eyes of a son of a frustrated Marine pilot, which is Robert Duvall, and it's the story of this kid who, as he's becoming a man and struggling through his teenage years and his manhood, on how to win the approval of his dad, this uber alpha male who no one can ever please, because he himself is just overly competitive and frustrated in his own life. So it's one of those really good father-son movies. 1976, Network. He plays the television network executive. If you've never seen Network, you should. It basically is, like I said, is 1976. This movie is basically America today. I'll just leave it at that. It's about a TV anchor goes crazy on the air, and this TV network, in order to deal with their sagging net ratings, monetizes his going crazy. 1979, Apocalypse Now. He's only in the movie maybe 10 minutes. It's probably 10 minutes. But he's got one of the two most iconic lines in movie history, Charlie Don't Surf, and someday this war is going to end. And he just oozes that role. 1998, a civil action. He plays a defense attorney for a large corporation. I think this one's also based on a true story. It stars John Travolta, who's suing on behalf of a town where their kids have all gotten cancer, and it's from corporate dumping of, I think it was like turpentine or something similar into the water. And Duvall's just very quiet and magnificent in his role. Very understated. He's wonderful. Okay, and this is one, it's not a great movie, but I really enjoy it. It's called 7 Days into Utopia. It's 2011.
The golf movie?
The golf movie.
Yeah.
It's like what the Hendrick brothers, I think it's Kendrick brothers wanted to do with Facing the Giants and all that, but it was too schmaltzy. This one's done in a way where it's a Christian movie, but it's done.
My grandparents like that movie.
I love that movie. I'll watch it every once a year. It's very inspiring. The kid who stars in it, I can't remember his name. He's fantastic. Robert Duvall is very good as this mentor father figure, and it's just a better Christian movie than a lot of what gets pumped out. It's not overt. It's less overt about it, but still has clearly a gospel message. And then my last one,
To Kill a Mockingbird.
To Kill a Mockingbird, Boo Radley, 1962. Never says a word, but acts, but is fantastic just as a physical actor in the scenes he's in there. It's actually that was his first role in a movie too. And he never looked back. So he will be missed. So many other movies I could have included, but I think those are the top 15. I saw other lists that people had, and they were movies that frankly I hadn't seen that they'd said were his top roles. He was also in arguably the first, well, not the first, but he was in George Lucas's first science fiction movie. I think it was his first movie. THX 9000. Is it THX 9000? It's a dystopian science fiction movie. I think Lucas was still in film school at USC or just finished, but it was before American Graffiti and then took off after Star Wars. But Duvall's good in that too, but it wouldn't be my top 15. So anyway, RIP, Robert Duvall. We're in one of those periods where we're going to start losing a lot of people like this.
Yep.
All right.
You want your trivia?
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you've been living under a rock or you just don't give a fuck, I'm disappointed. It's the Winter Olympics, y'all. I love the Winter Olympics. I love the Summer Olympics as well. Again, my dad was a track athlete, and so the Olympics are the pinnacle of track and field. And so we always grew up in the summers. We'd watch. So week 2 is always track and field. If you didn't know, you're like, what? I never even knew that was a thing. Yep. Second week of competition is when they do all the track and field events.
Week 1 swimming, week 2
week 1 is swimming. So, and there's different sports that have like their weeks and that kind of stuff. They get broken up into different sections. So we would watch that, and then the Winter Olympics would come on, and we loved it. As somebody who grew up loving skateboarding, the Winter Olympics are great because you get the X Games basically on snow, which there are the Winter X Games, which are great, but now you get to see a lot of those Winter X Games competitors now compete on the Olympic stage, which is a lot of fun. And so I've always been a big fan of the Winter Olympics and stuff like that moving forward. So we're going to do tonight for trivia, we're going to do a real or fake. I'm going to read out a fact. Tim has to decide whether that fact is real or fake. Some of these are really, really easy. So we'll see how you do. You can keep your tally on your sheet as to see how many you get correct. There are 23 questions in total. And so let's see how you do. So first off, an Olympic skier once lost a ski mid-race and finished on one ski and still won a medal.
Yes.
Yeah, that was Italy's Alberto Tomba famously finished races under chaotic conditions. Similar one ski finishes have happened in elite racing. Number 2, a penguin once wandered onto an Olympic competition course.
No.
That is correct. No penguins at Winter Olympics venues. Wrong hemisphere. I don't think Australia's hosted a
Yeah, you'd have to have like
so.
Argentina do it down at like Tierra del Fuego or something.
Yeah. Curling stones are made from a specific type of rare granite found mostly on one Scottish island.
Sure.
That is correct. It is called the Ailsa Craig granite.
They all look the same, but who knows?
Yeah.
But
it's weird that it
sounds
has to be very specifically that Scottish stone.
Yeah, well, it is kind of a so Scottish game though too.
Yeah.
Even though it's mostly identified with Canadians. Well, the 49th parallel, let's be honest, it's a 49th parallel game.
Yeah.
Give or take 100+ miles north or south of the 49th parallel. That's where it is.
Number 4, athletes used to smoke cigarettes between Olympic runs to focus.
That's got to be true.
Yeah, common in early 20th century sports culture. That wasn't just in the Olympics, but there you go. Number 5 is snowboarder.
Dude, there's a video that pops up like every 2 weeks. It's like someone just discovered this. I don't remember the driver, but there's a you can look it up on Instagram or TikTok where a guy right in the middle of the Daytona 500 lights up a cigarette with a helmet on and everything. Lights it up, takes a couple drags, so.
Yeah, you never know. Number 5, a snowboarder completed a gold medal run after borrowing a competitor's board.
I'm going to say no.
It is true. Equipment swaps actually happen.
Well, I could see that it happens
fairly frequently due to damage issues. And that makes sense for snowboarders. They're usually really good sports. They're all good friends. They all snowboard together, and so they're all cheering each other on. Like if you could watch, skateboarders hate scooter riders, but other than that, it's a really great environment. If you've ever been to like a skate park, if you get past all the weed, it's a culture that's based around supporting one another and carrying and just cheering each other on. Like you want to win, but at the same time, you also want to see somebody lay down a sick ass trick. So like, there's no problems with that kind of stuff. So it's great. So not surprised that it would be that. The U.S. once won a Winter Olympic medal in a sport that no longer exists called military patrol.
No.
It is true.
No, come on.
Military patrol would become the predecessor to the biathlon.
Okay.
I don't know. Well, but we still haven't won a biathlon medal, so. An Olympic speed skating race had to stop because the ice had melted.
Yes.
Yep. In 1928, St. Moritz warm weather chaos. Number 8, a competitor raced wearing jeans instead of official gear.
I think that was the first Olympics, St. Moritz. Say that again?
A competitor raced wearing jeans instead of official gear.
No.
That is correct. It's not allowed under Olympic regulations. Number 9, athletes memorize every curve of their track before bobsled races because they can't see much while racing.
Well, I don't know about the latter, but yes, they memorize the track.
Yeah. Track walks are essential. I can imagine that it's very...
It's not that they can't see it. It's just you have to anticipate. You just have to know, like,
yeah,
you're going so fast.
Yeah.
That I have a turn here, and it's so slight. I mean, it doesn't take... If you're off by like a millisecond, then you're... I can't remember what they call it. It's not a sled. I think they have another term. But anyway, you'll see it when you're watching it. The sled will go too high around the corner, and it'll then slap the wall when they go down in the flat straights, if it's all over the place. There was a U.S. woman, she was missing all of her marks, and she managed to get that bobsled like sideways. I mean, it's basically, it was going like...
Somehow broke all of her teeth inside of her face. Like, golly, dude, that would hurt so bad.
Well, it was upright.
Yeah.
But it was going at like
But if you're saying she's missing every mark, that means she's hitting the walls of
she was slapping everything. And I think once she missed like 2 or 3 turns, I think she just was completely off.
That'd be awful. A skier once accidentally crossed the finish line backward and it still counted.
I think that's correct.
It's real. As long as equipment crosses correctly, it counts. There is an Olympic sport where athletes slide face first downhill at highway speeds.
Say that again?
I said there's an Olympic sport where athletes slide face first downhill at highway speeds.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's the skeleton.
The skeleton. Which, again, that one only started
easy.
like 20 years ago. It's basically luge inverted.
Yep. The Olympics briefly considered adding snowball fighting as a demonstration sport.
No.
Yeah, that's fake. Though wildly rumored, apparently. Curlers sometimes yell at the rocks to improve performance.
They yell at the rocks, but I don't think it's to improve performance.
It doesn't improve performance, but communication affects sweeping timing. So, yeah, they yell at the rocks. An athlete won medals in both the Summer and Winter Olympics in different sports.
Yes.
Do you know who it was?
I think it was Shaun White, wasn't it?
It was not. No, because skateboarding wasn't in yet. And they still don't do half pipe, they don't do half pipe skating. They do half pipe snowboarding. So Shaun White, a decorated Summer X Games champion, but not Summer Olympics champion.
I don't know who it was.
Skateboarding in the Japanese Olympics. That was the first time skateboarding was.
Oh, was it a speed skater?
It is not a speed skater.
I don't know.
Do you want me to tell you the 2 sports and maybe you can guess it? Won a medal in boxing and a medal in bobsled.
Oh, I don't.
The winner is Eddie Egan.
A
dog helped carry equipment during an Olympic race and became an official medalist.
No.
Yeah, no. Dogs have appeared. I was like, there's even been one in this Olympics, but no medals. Olympic luge athletes can reach speeds faster than cars on city streets.
Yes.
Yeah, that's easy. We literally said highway speeds earlier for the skeleton. It's over 90 miles per hour. Is that what they can reach? Some Olympic medals contain recycled electronics materials.
No.
It's true, although it's been fairly recent. The 2020 Olympics was the first time that they incorporated recycled electronic materials. Athletes must weigh their skis after races to ensure fairness.
No.
They must.
Really?
The regulations are strict, so it's like a NASCAR race.
Never seen that. Why don't they ever shown that?
Yeah. Why don't they say that the results are pending? You got to go weigh your shit before a snowstorm once delayed events because officials couldn't find the finish line.
Oh, that one's tough. No.
It is true.
Lillehammer
issues have halted competitions.
Really?
Including for not finding
it's probably in the biathlon or the cross country.
Cross country. And then this year they have the uphill or whatever. An Olympic event required competitors to build their own sled before racing.
No.
Wouldn't that be great, though? Cool idea, but never Olympic. All right, last 3. Curling stones can cost more than $1,000 each.
Sure.
Yes, that is correct. Olympic ski jumps are so high that falling from the top equals a 10-story building.
Yes.
That is correct. It's roughly around 10 stories. Athletes warm up by sitting in freezers before races.
That might be true, but I'm going to say no.
Yeah, it's not. They actually try to stay warm. There you go.
I wouldn't put it past anybody these days with sports and what they try to do.
There you go.
Freezing hyperbaric chamber.
Yeah. Well, that was like Michael Phelps when he was training for the Brazil. Was it Brazil?
Yeah, Rio.
For Rio, he slept in a chamber that reduced the amount of oxygen, so that way he could expand his lungs. So he specifically slept in he just slept in a chamber that reduced the amount of oxygen that was in there. Wild. But he's the most decorated Olympian of all time, so.
Have you ever heard if he just had bigger lung capacity?
I've never heard that. No, his hands.
Because that's what was frustrating about Lance Armstrong. Look, he had to cheat in order to win that many times, but on his own, that guy was a freak. Like just genetically, physically, he has this freakish amount of lung capacity that's much larger, not much larger, but larger than your average, not just person, but athlete, which gave him an advantage, which is why he was an up and coming cyclist when he was a late teen in Austin. He was seen as a guy who was going to make the U.S. cycling team and go compete and lead us at the Tour de France. And then he had the testicular cancer, and then I don't know what happened after that. But so I just wondered if maybe something like that with Phelps.
Well, it was the thousands. Everybody was taking roids. Come on, man.
I guess. I mean, I always said, in order to do that sport, let's just assume everyone's doping, because it's completely unnatural to be able to race through the Alps for 5 days up and down without some sort of artificial recovery.
It's cute. You think
I wouldn't want anybody doing it anyway. Wouldn't you want people doing it anyway? I mean, come on.
I think it's crazy that you said it was 5 days. Isn't it like?
No, I'm just saying specifically when they hit the Alps.
Yeah.
And they're racing like 100 miles in the mountains. Like, what do you think they're just doing this naturally? Give me a break.
Those are the best days. The other days, like this, like the downhill days, the flat trials, those are kind of like meh.
Yeah, no, it's when they're in the mountains.
Yeah, it's when they're in the mountains.
The peloton, and you're waiting for the guy to break off, and then now it's 5 guys.
Yeah, you're like,
holy
fuck.
Yeah,
and you're like, good for that guy when he's finally on the downhill, and they're like,
and then you're like
flying, and then there's a car.
Yeah, now
that drives right by them.
Like 3 hours in, and he's going 80 miles an hour on a 13-pound bike, and you're like, oh, this could go badly. Which it does every once in a while, because someone lets their dog run out in front of the pack, or anyway. No, I mean, I asked that about Phelps. Till you take one look at Phelps, you can see why. I mean, that guy could have easily played basketball or volleyball or football. He was so big, it gave him an advantage in the pool, which is, to be fair, that's most of those Olympic swimmers are 6'4", 6'5", but I think he was like 6'7". He's a big dude.
Yeah.
And it's just that kind of wingspan. You're not racing in Olympic swimming at 6 feet.
No.
Same with the water polo. Water polo boys are big too.
Yeah.
All right. Man, we've gotten so efficient like the last 6 weeks of this thing. We're only 42 minutes in, and we're ready to get rolling.
That's right.
Cutting out the chit-chat. All right, we're going to continue this week with our Christianese series. This might be our last one. We think of something else, but I think this is going to be our last one on this topic series, and then we'll go to something else. Colt and I are going to try to get more Christian specific. I know we kind of got off topic for a couple months, well, about 9 months with the election and wars going on and stuff like that. But I know the real reason people are tuning in is because we have thoughts and ideas about the church and Christianity and that kind of thing. So we're going to try to keep us refocused on that. So moving forward, there'll still be some deviations probably here and there, but we're going to try to keep it focused. So tonight we're going to talk about, sorry, I'm distracted. Tonight we're going to talk about communion, and we're going to talk about fellowship. And if you're a lifelong Christian, you might be like, these aren't very Christianese words. But Colt and I disagree. They are very Christianese words, because you probably come from a particular strain of Christianity, and you think that's pretty much how the church views communion in particular. Just all the church views communion that way, or that there's different views of communion in the church, but you just don't know what the other ones are. So we'll start with that, and I think that will lead into a natural transition into fellowship, because it's arguably these things are actually intertwined, even though the church doesn't practice it that way. So I'm going to do what I've been doing throughout this. I'm going to give sort of the academic definitions, views of Christianity. So there are arguably 4 major views of Christianity. Well, there's probably 2 major views of Christianity, and then communion, and then within those 2, there are differences within those 2 different ones. So it leads you to kind of like 4 common ideas of communion within the Western Church. Again, Colton and I have just recently started pointing this out. When we're talking about church, we're talking about the Western Church. Colton and I know nothing about the Orthodox Church, Greek Orthodox Church, Russian Orthodox Church. So this doesn't include them, although they're probably close to the Catholic view. So view number 1, this is called transubstantiation. It's the Catholic view of communion, and that view believes that the bread and wine literally change substance into the actual body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ. And so even though their appearance looks like blood, bread, and wine, you are actually literally drinking the blood and body of Jesus as you go through the process, go through communion. Again, that's called transubstantiation. So that's the view of the Catholic Church. Luther comes along and has a disagreement. One of the things he disagrees with the Catholic Church is on this topic, on communion. And he comes up with a view that's now called consubstantiation, which can be what could be just generally called the Lutheran view of communion. And that is, it asserts that the physical body and blood of Christ coexist, but it's in, with, and under the substance of the bread and the wine during the Eucharist or the communion. Eucharist, if you hear the word Eucharist, that's a synonym for communion. Eucharist and communion are the same thing. If you're a Catholic, you're more likely to call it Eucharist than you are communion's the Protestant term for it. So his view is the bread and the wine remain bread and wine, but the body and blood of Christ are present somehow alongside, under, around the elements. So you're still like literally spiritually, I guess, indulging in these things, consuming these things as you take communion, but it's not literally transformed and our eyes are seeing the previous manifestation of it. Then this other Protestant comes along at the same time of Luther. His name is Huldrych Zwingli, and he comes up with a view which is we would now call memorialism. This is just the general Baptist, Anabaptist, many evangelicals. I would say this is probably the view of most Christians today who don't think about church, don't know what their church's actual, like their literal, the church that they go to and the denomination that it belongs to, what it says it believes. I think this is probably what most American Christians view communion as. And his view is, this is basically all we're doing is a memorial act to remember the Lord's Supper. We are literally doing this in remembrance of him. That's all it is. It's an act of remembrance of what Jesus did the night before he died on the cross, which is have community with his brothers, with his followers, and then the next day die on the cross for their sins and our sins. That's all it is. It is a moment of remembrance. And then, of course, because John Calvin can't do anything easily, John Calvin says, no, you're right, but you're only half right. So his view is the true Calvinist view is the real spiritual presence. So yes, you're eating you're actually only eating bread or wine or juice or whatever, but you are actually consuming the present, that in the act, the Spirit of Jesus, the Holy Spirit, is there as you're doing it. And so it is not only this remembrance act, but it is a spiritual communal act where you're coming into contact with and close to God. So again, if you're listening to this, you're probably more likely one of the last two. I would imagine most folks haven't put too much thought into it, and you're probably most likely the memorialism view. But those are the four general views of communion within the church.
Yep. Those are the views.
Then there's arguments over how often.
Yeah, there are arguments over how often, who's included in being able to partake of communion.
Yeah, so I guess we should chop that up. So I'm going to be generous with Mormons and say they're Christians. I believe Mormons do it every week. Every time I've been to a Mormon service, they do it. They're doing it. I think they do it.
Catholics do it every week.
Catholics do it every week. Yeah, Catholics do it every week. I don't know if Lutherans do. Episcopals do, because they're basically like Church of England. Church of England's Catholic. So anything Catholic adjacent, you're doing it every week. There are some Protestant churches that do it every week.
Yep.
But generally Protestant churches do it once a month, once, I would say, a quarter. And then at neighborhood, man, whew, I swear there was years where they forgot to do it. It just, or maybe I missed they do it maybe 2-3 times a year. Maybe.
I think there was one 3 weeks ago.
But they don't do it very often.
No.
What do you have any views on regularity? Well, I guess before we get into that.
Before we get into that?
Do we want to share our views on communion, or what do we want to do?
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So my views on communion are similar to the idea of, what we are, to where I view it as the remembrance. I believe that the Holy Spirit is always with us. I believe that Jesus is within me. And so therefore I view that this is a good remembrance for us to remember what is going on with I don't know. I think that it's very important to remember the sacrifice that Jesus made. I think that, I even think that when Jesus did this, it was extremely symbolic, going through talking about the bread and the wine and what it represents. And so it's kind of weird that people have taken it to then be literal, when I don't think Jesus ever meant for it to be literal. But I think that it was a good practice. I think I understand what he was going for, and therefore it makes it something that's good for us to use as a remembrance for him. So that's my thoughts on communion, at least if you want my perspective, and then I'll get into like further thoughts about other people's opinions on it, and just being like, and I'm not trying to bash on anything or anybody, but I also talking about what's good about it and that kind of stuff. But that is my perspective. Tim, you want to talk about yours?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's in remembrance of, well, I think this is one of those issues where we've gotten in this sort of like Catholic versus Protestant divide, and it's almost led us to this binary, like I think maybe I'm jumping ahead on where the conversation should be, but
no, I think that's fine.
I think it's a symbolic act, and where the Protestant church, in particular the American Protestant church, and the reason for it is a lot of it's just modernity. It's a healthy aversion to religion. But I think the American church has lost part of it's also just our culture in general is a lot less formal. I mean, and on that I can't throw stones. I don't, I dress as casual as anybody. I don't have to go to work. I don't go to an office, so I get to dress like a teenager at 50 something years old. So, but in that because our society's gotten so laid back and informal, I think in some ways it's hurt us spiritually. And I do think, even though I think Jesus came to tear down religion and all that, I don't think that he meant that there shouldn't be rituals in our practice. And one of those rituals is communion. That's why he says, do it in remembrance of me. And so I think now I would say there's a balance. If you're at a church, when I have been at churches that do it every week, I feel like it just becomes rote and repetitive, and it takes out the meaning of it. And that doesn't mean everybody does. Maybe someone finds that like a high mark of the week where they can reset. It's a perfect moment for them to ask for forgiveness, repent. But if it's every week, I just feel like the significance of it is a bit lost. Whereas if you're doing it every 6 weeks, every quarter, something like that, there's enough time to space out where you feel like it really is a somewhat monumental thing to remember Jesus' death and his sacrifice, and again have that reset moment. And then and I would say one of my criticisms for Neighborhood was I did miss sort of this more regular. I remember I didn't complain once, but I did ask. I asked, like, what's the church's policy on communion? Because I've been here for a while and I don't think we've done it once. And I think the answer was, oh yeah, we kind of forgot about it. And I think if you're a church, I don't think you should be forgetting about scheduling that. Like, that should be something that should be thought about. So
Yeah.
because like you said, if Jesus is saying do this in remembrance of me, and then it's just kind of this is one of those, like, all right, let's mark this moment down, like, so.
Yeah. No, I think that you're absolutely right. It's something that I think if it gets used too often. Now, again, I've never been in a church where it's used too often. Like, I haven't been in a once a week church. Like, I wasn't raised Catholic or anything, where it was observed weekly. But I will say that I do think that there is something to saving it for a certain time and remembering it regularly as a part of your practice. Because I think that we constantly need a reminder of the cross.
Yeah. It can't just be left for Easter.
Yeah, it can't just be left for Easter. We need a reminder of what that death ultimately did for us and what his resurrection means. And remember, like, that whole meal is about the entire weekend and about what the disciples are being asked to do moving forward and what we're asked to do moving forward, where it's almost kind of like this is the early pouring out of the Spirit, or this kind of great commission where this is my body, this is my blood that I have given to you, that you are a part of me and I am a part of you. And so therefore we have a responsibility to go out and be Christians because we are a part of his body. We've taken the book, and I mean, like, in today's terms, it's very cultish. And anything that's, a gathering of people where they do a communal thing like that will always come across as cultish. You're like, wait, you're eating his body and you're drinking his blood. And, and you're like, well, in an isolated incident, if that's how you look at it, yeah, you're right. That does kind of go there. You're like, yeah, if you're bringing somebody for the first time, don't be like, hey, drink this Kool-Aid. But I do think that there is something to the religious practice of it, because again, it is a part of our religious practice, and that there is weight behind it. Is it something that you need to do? No. There's no guarantees of faith. There's no guarantees of salvation through that. And I mean, like, we've talked about this in previous episodes, but anybody that sits there and dogmatizes this is wrong. Again, go to Galatians and view that there, to where if anybody sits there and says that you need to take communion in order to be a believer, if you don't take it, then, whatever. If you're like, I'm not comfortable, like, I'm not into this whole cult thing. I'm in on the Jesus thing, but I'm not into the whole, like, I can remember him in my own way and remember him and what he did without partaking in this, then absolutely, like, you are free to do that. And I'm not saying that there's a ton of you out there or anything like that, because, you're in the middle of a service and you're getting a little hungry and and you're like, what would really make this better? A saltine cracker that's the size of my thumb. So, I get it. But at the same time, it should not be dogmatized. I don't even know if it should be doctrine, where it's like, we're going to do communion, blah, 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 blah. And so, like, I know that Tim was like, you should, like, I feel like as a church, you should have it. I don't, if a church didn't have it, I'm not upset, or I don't have a problem with it. I'd be like, okay, they just don't do communion here, because and I could see how a church in a 21st century context would choose not to do communion, because they're thinking of, and depending on whatever their demographics are that come into their church, I could see them being like, yeah, it is kind of a isolating thing that's really only for church people. Like, church people understand it and get it, but if you had somebody new come in who had no concept of it, they'd come in and they'd be like, all right, this is really weird, and I don't feel comfortable. And I don't blame them for not feeling comfortable with that. And not that the church is all about making people feel comfortable, but I'm saying that if a church made the decision because of that, I'd be like, okay, I get where you're coming from on that decision-making process. So, and I'd be like, sure, that's how you're making decisions, like, that's not, and I wouldn't sit there and be like, you need to have it or anything. I'm sure lots of old people in the church would definitely come in and say that kind of thing. But yeah, it's not a need to have, but I do see benefits of having it that outweigh the negatives, I feel like, in my opinion. Any thoughts on that, Tim?
I think you and I generally agree. Might be a little stronger. I think if you're not engaged in communion, you're leaving a tool out of your toolbox, so to speak. And what I would say about the church that's a seeker-friendly church, if that's you, then what I would do is what I would do in that instance, and frankly, I think churches who aren't seeker-friendly, I think even like churches with people who all have been there for a long time. I think my criticism for basically all the churches I've ever been in that I can remember, and maybe there's some services I don't remember, but I don't remember this being a pattern. It wasn't a pattern enough that I remember it, put it that way. I think once a year, whether you do it once a year or you do it 4 times or 15 times, I think once a year you should make that service about the Last Supper and communion. And Easter is the easy time to do it, but it doesn't have to be Easter, because it's your time to sit down and point out that the Last Supper is bigger. If you really look at it, the communion that we're basing this on, the Last Supper, it's a Passover meal that the disciples and Jesus are having as a part of the Jewish holiday of Passover. So they're having a Seder. And there's a theological argument to be made that by Jesus doing this, Jesus is declaring to the disciples and then now to us that this is him replacing the lamb that was slaughtered at the Passover story. That gets a whole other thing, but he is now the lamb that's being slaughtered, and it adds more depth and richness and an idea that this has all been ordained and that the Bible is constantly pointing to Jesus even when we don't see it. These are things that are being foretold, and that this is Jesus fulfilling this, and it's going over the heads of the disciples, and who we don't really know when they got it, one assumes once they get filled with the Holy Spirit, they kind of look back and like, oh, that's what he was doing. But so I think there is an opportunity if you do it once a year, or even if you're doing it multi-times, to just again really settle in on the importance of this Last Supper. It's not just them getting together and Jesus having a meal with them. It's him fulfilling. It's him replacing the old law with the new law. It's him once again, being the servant king, where he is washing the feet of those who should be washing his feet.
Yeah.
It's once again, he's flipping the script and doing things in a way contrary to how the world should work. So again, I think there's a line between, I would say the reason why I think your point for the seeker-friendly thing is a good point, because I think in some ways it has become, there's a difference between ritual, and I would say I don't know that this is, hopefully this makes sense. There's a difference between the importance of ritual and then becoming ritualistic. And I think the church has become ritualistic in communion, and too often the importance of the moment is not conveyed in the service. And there's all kinds of reasons for that. It's because everyone's on a schedule. You got babies out in children's ministry. You got volunteers out there who are 10 minutes past their volunteer time. Everyone's wanting to get home. I get all that. I mean, this is where like modern church and like actually practicing church collide. Once again, this is another of those areas where like, yeah, maybe this is the one day where we sit in a room and we have screaming babies and everyone just shuts the hell up and deals with screaming babies. And we're going an hour and a half because we want everyone to really get the moment of, this is our time to do communion. We're remembering this time. We're remembering the importance of this act. We're remembering what Jesus was trying to convey. We're remembering what Jesus said and did in the moment. And we're going to go out and repeat that.
Yeah.
What I would like to know, and I guess I'm sure I could read books on it, where the hell did the Catholic Church come up with this idea that like you're literally eating, and what is the efficacy of that?
Yeah, it's
so odd to me. I don't understand it. I'm sure if we had a Catholic friend on here, they could explain it. I'd still be like, yeah, okay, whatever. But it's so foreign to me.
Well, I think it actually has to come down to, this.
A pagan thing?
Yeah,
I think it's I think it's a pagan.
But that's a lot of the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
And which is not, again, we got to remember, it's crazy that the Catholic Church has been able to hold on to all of these things for so long that they've had, and nobody sat there and just been like, hey, you know that all you did was just adopt a pagan ritual or a pagan practice, and then therefore and not just sit there and just be like, oh, but it's not necessary for your faith. But no, like the Catholic Church still stands on it and is like, no, this is how it has to be done. And you're just like, and everything becomes so dogmatic for them. I mean,
this is where the Protestant this is where you and I still collide with our with Catholic friends. I mean, we don't literally but with the Catholics.
Yeah.
Is those, the church, the church, the church often wants to have it both ways, where they want to act like, no, we're friends to everyone. But you actually read their doctrine. It's like, no, you claim you're the only church and anybody outside of that is not a Christian. And then even on this, like, if you don't believe that it is literally the blood and literally the body, then you're not engaged in communion and it's fake. And it's like, whew, okay. Oh, what do we have to be so dogmatic about this? Again, particularly, I will admit my aversion to the thought and my inability to wrap my head around it is because I have a modern brain, and I'm sure 200-300 years ago, even a Protestant could wrap their head around it. So this is purely like, I will admit my inability to fathom is because I live in a world where I don't have to kill my own food and I'm not dealing with death and blood all the time. And there's some element of that to not getting like the whole, like I'm eating the blood and drinking, eating the body and blood of Jesus. But even then, just like, well, all right, whatever. But again, like, why are we getting so uppity about it?
Yeah.
But yes, so yeah, if you're listening to this and you didn't know communion was that complicated, yes, it can be.
Yeah, and ultimately at the end of the day, what I would say for communion is it's something that if you feel led to be a part of, I highly recommend submitting to communion. Man, I believe that it's supposed to be something that's a little bit more intimate. I actually really enjoyed at our previous church when we went to more of that intimate setting when it came to communion, where it was like, all right, come up as you feel led and partake at our different areas. And so people would go up with their families and they would take communion together as opposed to just like, we're going to pass out the plates and the trays and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, that was a nice change JC made and actually led to groups of people like praying together in little groups, either families or like couples that knew each other.
Yeah, that was good.
Really added to the not somberness but the importance of the moment,
the gravity. Yeah,
the gravity.
So yeah, I completely agree. I think there's something to it because I if you're a believer and you've been a believer for a long time, there's something about recognizing the torture and death of an innocent man that is so jarring and so harsh and so sad, and also in the aspect of him doing it so selflessly is something that's worth remembering, and then also knowing what it does for us. Again, I think that there's a lot of peace and it just puts yourself in the right mindset. And so therefore, again, I'm not one who's an advocate for a lot of religious practice and stuff. I think that there are good elements to a lot of them. But that doesn't mean that they're necessary or anything. And I wouldn't necessarily advocate for them, but I do believe that communion is one of those things where I'd be like, I'd advocate for you to try it and put your heart in the right place. And I'm not saying it's something that you need to do every week at all, but just occasionally take some time and remember your Savior, not just on Easter, for what he did. And I know that we all know, but it's taking time to acknowledge it. It's the same thing with prayer. Yes, you know that God knows everything about you and he sees what you're doing and he knows that you're his number, but it's about actually taking the time to recognize your Savior and talk with him in your day. But that's how I feel about it. Anything else on communion?
Yeah, hang on. Just one last note. If you're looking at this scripturally, Matthew and Mark are pretty much like literally the same. At least if you're reading your standard NIV mainline English translation, the English is pretty much literally Jesus says the same thing in both accounts. Luke's is slightly different, but again, it's basically the words are like slightly different, but it is all pretty much happens the same way. To which, I would say I'm bringing that up because I think when you see those moments in the Gospels, that kind of tells you something like this was clearly remembered by those who were there, was clearly articulated and passed down to whoever wrote it down. And there was no this was an important moment that was remembered. There was no oh, no, he said this thing, but then he did that. And he didn't say to do it this way. He just said it is all the same. John's is only different because his is not a Passover thing. His timing's off. It's like the week before or something else.
Yeah.
I don't, that kind of takes away from the whole. You could argue that kind of takes away from the whole Jesus is the replacement as the lamb, but it really doesn't in John's account. It's pretty much the same. And in all the accounts, it's Jesus referring to himself as the Son of Man. The Son of Man's going to do this. Son of Man is not going to do that, blah, blah, blah. And so, again, when you see those moments in all 4 scriptures, because, they don't all line up, some have things that happen that others didn't think were important or didn't see or remember, that one, it is all the same. And so, again, as Colton said, this is, I wouldn't say it's on the level of baptism, but it's baptism adjacent, where you can be a believer and not, you can be a believer, full believer, believe in Jesus, follow Jesus. But it is something I think we're called to do as Christians and should try to do. So if you're not, you're not, there's some level of enrichment that you're not giving yourself every so often by remembering this moment with Jesus. So now, that said, again, the church is boiled this down to what we've been talking about, which is like, doesn't matter what, it doesn't matter if you're Catholic or on the other, like, whatever extreme there is on the other side of the Protestant church. I don't know though how we do it in church is how Jesus envisioned it.
Pentecostals.
Huh?
I said Pentecostals.
Well, some Pentecostal adjacent. Actually, I don't know if Pentecostals. I'm trying to remember when I was in the Pentecostal church when I was a kid, if we did. I don't remember doing communion. We probably did though. But I could see that's one where the Pentecostals don't do it. There's probably some sect of it. That's the problem with saying Pentecostals. There's so many different kinds.
Well, that's true, but that's true about a lot of different ones.
Yeah, but
Baptist, Presbys.
Yeah. American Presbyterian, American Baptist, Southern Baptist.
Goes. The only one that stayed true is Church of Christ over there. They're holding out.
We don't have our resident Church of Christ expert.
Yeah, he'd say the same thing, except for Tularius Church of Christ, apparently, because Apple Annie's takes priority.
Yeah. So again, not to beat a dead horse, I think this is again one of those situations where you're more like home church adjacent. You're going to have I think you're going to have a more meaningful, fruitful, enriching communion experience because it's more intimate. You can take time with it.
You can have better bread.
Definitely eat better bread.
Actual wine.
Yeah. Hell yeah. So a little Tobin James. Twice leavened bread. Maybe a little San Francisco sourdough.
Yeah. Instead of, Welch's. Welch's and styrofoam that apparently counts as like a wafer.
Sourdough and a Napa Cabernet. Hell yeah.
When we were in, because growing up, my dad was a youth pastor at a small community church in Northern California. It's Pengrove Community Church. But people came over. I got to ask my parents as to why. Because Pengrove was tiny, tiny town. And everybody that came there was like, Pengrove is smaller than Tipton. But people would go to this church from Petaluma, come in from Santa Rosa. And it's just like, why? Like now, retrospectively, I'm just like, why? Why are they all there?
Well, you guys are crammed in the middle of all those, though, right?
Yeah,
because we drove past
Pengrove is off.
We drove through. You had us drive through it one night when you were driving.
Did I? I thought I just ppointed it off.
I thought
if you go and you take 10 miles that way, you get to
Petaluma. Oh no, okay, we didn't go 10 miles that way
because it's like Petaluma. If you get off on that road that goes to where we stayed at the hotel for the race in Petaluma, that's like just down the street from Lagunitas and Hen House. You go and you take that road up and around, but you got to take it. What is that? Northeast. You get to Pengrove. You take that about 10 miles up that way, you get to Pengrove. And then that is interconnecting to where you can then go from there to Santa Rosa.
I think they were on one of the planning trips. We were off the.
I've driven past it once with people, so maybe we have.
We weren't that far off. I think you said that it was like we were a mile east of the 134, whatever 1101.
Yeah,
and
The town
and it
itself
was
is
hilly. And I remember you said this is like Pingrove or
yeah.
reminded me of
The
Pingrove.
town
That might
itself
have what you said.
is like 4 streets. Like that's all it is.
Yeah.
It's only got an elementary school. That's it. Just a K through.
But someone
6.
heard about this little country church on the
Yeah,
edge of
I don't know
town.
why, but I mean, super small church, but we always had really good bread for a communion. It's so funny. It's like full on, like, yeah, you're joking about the sourdough. I was like, yeah, it was like an actual like bread basket that got passed around with like bread, like baguettes that were sourdough baguettes that were ripped apart.
As a former treasurer of a church, if you're trying to save money on your budget, don't do it for communion, for the love of God. It's not worth the pennies. I think at both the previous 2 churches, neighborhood and the other church, they tried doing that white cellular substance that's supposed to look like a wafer that I think the Catholic churches use too. That's supposed to like dissolve on the tongue or something. Don't do that, please. No. Just stick with the oyster crackers.
By the way, right now what's happening in this game is we're watching a replay of the Canada United States hockey game. So this was on in my classroom this morning. I know I'm a really good teacher. I had it on my computer screen. It's not up for everybody to see. And so I'm taking laps around my room, like kids are working on stuff, and I'm walking around helping them. But then I'm every lap I go and I check my computer as I like go by. I like go and I look and I see what's the score, what's the updated. Look at some of the stuff. What just happened right now is a Canadian hockey player. Tried clearing the puck, but it was trying to be in her end. But she shoots the puck out into the stands, and this guy catches it, and I was like, crap, it's 2-0 because this kid is just holding up a puck and is just like, yeah, Canada. And I was like, dang it, it's 2-0. And I couldn't for the life of me figure out what the hell was going on because it's still saying 1-0, but they were showing the fans from Canada all waving their flags and stuff. And I was like, damn it. And I was like, I was standing there waiting for a replay for like a while. And then I just see this like reset and it still says 1-0. And I was like, what the heck just happened? And then I like rewind and I was like, this is all because some kid caught a puck? Like, what the heck?
Olympic fever.
Yeah, I guess. Anyway, sorry. Sorry for the distraction.
Yeah, don't go cheap on the communion. Come on. You're not saving that much money. I think Neighborhood did that after COVID because they bought those prepackaged.
Dude, it's literally like
that
wafer is like styrofoam.
That's the wafer I'm talking about. The thing's disgusting.
Golly,
they've like turned. It's the airline food equivalent of communion.
Dude, it's bad. I was like,
geez. The juice comes in this prepackaged little juice thing, similar to what
I also can't fucking open it.
Yeah,
I can't.
So you're getting mad.
Audrey's holding Jackson. I'm over there trying to open this damn thing, and I'm apparently ripping too hard. I'm lifting. There's apparently an inner lining to the juice cup that I'm fucking ripping out of this thing.
It's like,
and I'm like getting juice fucking everywhere.
It's like the scene in Seinfeld where George is trying to open up a condom and he can't, and his fiance is trying to help him. He's like, no, I can get it. And then by the time he gets it, he's like, the moment's over. It's done. I can't. Yeah, now you're so frustrated. It's like they just ruined it.
Yeah.
No, I'm not in the mood for.
Now I don't care about your death, Jesus. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's so dumb.
No frame of mind. Do this often, and it's remembrance of me.
Yeah, I better fucking not do this often.
Where is that from, by the way? Because I don't see that in either Mark or Matthew or Luke. Where did he say that in John?
I have no idea.
Because that's what like Brandon and everybody would always say when they would do. No, John doesn't have it at all.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he does not have it at all. Well, that's John. John's a wily book. John's got he's got a whole other agenda. As we've noted on this podcast many times. John's out there in a whole other
dimension.
John's the
theatrical.
John's the Hunter S. Thompson of the of the 4 gospel writers.
Again, remember,
He's tripping. He's everything's spiritual, and
and I think
he goes on and does his acid trip for Revelation, and he's just the.
Well, and I think I've mentioned this before, that if that biblical scholars would agree that John's letters would not be written in red.
No.
So, but that's Jesus is quoted from John 9 times out of 10 in your church settings, and that's because, again, he's very poetic, very dramatic.
Yeah, the whole book starts in a very dramatic, but I think very insightful way. In the
Jesus
beginning,
is a lot more philosophical
right.
in John than everywhere else. Everywhere else, he's very direct. He gets cut straight to the point, and in John, he's speaking in riddles. He's sat at the feet of Socrates, and that's where he gives his I am statements, which there are 7. No, maybe it's more than that. Is it 11? Is 11 I am statements?
I think so.
In John, yeah. Anyways, it's the Jesus that John presents. That is great. I think that there's a lot of truth still in John's gospel. It's just, there's what he said was probably. I wouldn't quote what he says in John and say
John's not a historical gospel like the other 3.
No.
John's explaining Jesus.
Yeah.
He again, from the very beginning of the book, and begin the word. He's the word. He's the manifestation of the word. He is the word of God. It's a living manifestation of it. And then boom, we're off. So he's more explaining it. That just as here's me, and here's my time with him. What is he? And he refers to himself as his favorite,
The beloved.
The beloved.
Oh yeah, but I've told you. I'm pretty sure I told you that I had a professor in college who believed that he was not the author of the book of John. John was not the author of John, and his argument was, and there's a lot of biblical scholars don't think that John actually wrote John.
Right.
Biblical scholars also don't believe that John wrote the book of Revelation.
Right.
And so he believed that the person that was the beloved disciple and who was Lazarus.
Interesting.
And so he didn't spend like an entire class period. He spent like maybe 5 minutes talking about it. He was like, I don't know, think about it.
Well, I don't know who wrote it. I
chucked it out to the class, but it was funny because it's the race to the tomb that everybody loves about the beloved disciple. It's Peter. Peter was running, but the beloved disciple passed him. And the beloved disciple got there first, or whatever is the whole gag where it's like, oh. So
I take the beloved disciple as John. John can't. Whoever the author is, just say it's John. John can't imagine that Jesus loved him that much. And so it sounds self-aggrandizing for sure, but I think it's more of, it is this guy who loved me. I take it more like that, but I don't know. Anyway, speaking of I am statements, totally off topic, but something we should mention.
I am on my second beer. No, what?
Mitch, I forgot someone else who died this week. Jesse Jackson.
Oh, yeah.
And Jesse Jackson was a problematic guy, but he was there on the balcony when Martin Luther King Jr. got killed. He was in many ways continuing manifestation of that. I think in a lot of ways he was indicative of how the civil rights movement went off the rails and became more of a money game than an actual civil rights movement, but he was a flawed figure, but still someone to be remembered. And the reason why I said the I am statement made me think of that is because I haven't looked for it, but look on YouTube for Jesse Jackson reading Green Eggs and Ham on Saturday Night Live. It is hilarious.
That's awesome.
He does it in the very Jesse Jackson, Sam, I am. I do not eat green eggs and ham. It is he is doing a parody of himself. He is self-aware enough to do a parody of himself reading Dr. Seuss on Saturday Night Live. It is hilarious, and props to him. So for some reason, I am.
They need to do the exact same thing with Mike Tyson.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
That'd be great. I would cry laughing so hard. Oh my gosh, to see. And Mike Tyson's really good at making fun of himself.
Oh yeah, he
does the. There's a YouTube channel. Eric Pedersen could tell you all about it, but it's like Mike Tyson's
Oh, he's got a show. It's like on the Cartoon Network or something.
Well, it's not. It's on YouTube, but it's Scooby Doo.
It's Scooby Doo, but with Mike Tyson.
But with Mike Tyson, so it's animated in the whole thing, and it is Mike Tyson playing the part of Mike Tyson, and he just makes fun of himself.
Yeah, his issues aren't taking himself seriously. In fact,
no, yeah.
Mike's problems his whole life was not taking himself serious enough and knowing he was loved because the childhood he had. But I think he's mostly figured it out, hopefully. But yeah, not self-aggrandizing wasn't part of his problem.
I mean, the best Mike Tyson stuff is actually Eddie Murphy talking about Mike Tyson. It's so freaking funny. Mike Tyson is just a true artist of sportsmanship. I love Mike Tyson. But they did that boy Larry Holmes on the commercials. That guy has no sportsmanship whatsoever. He'd get on TV and he'd be like, well, all I gotta say is fuck you and fuck the judges. And since we on HBO, y'all can suck my motherfucking dick. I don't need this shit. I do commercials. So fucking funny. Eddie Murphy, comical genius. Although apparently he had beef with David Spade at one point. I learned that this week.
Well, I can see David
just did an impression of him, I guess, or something, made fun of him. Eddie didn't like it very much, I guess. I think it was a different Eddie at a different time.
Yeah.
I think.
But David's very funny, but I could also see him getting under someone's skin, though, too.
Oh, for sure.
He seems like one of those guys who might not read the room at the right moment and get himself in trouble.
Me too, David. Me too.
Okay, so the other thing we're going to talk about was Fellowship.
Oh, wait. The second beer of the evening.
Oh, yeah, let's do that.
We are drinking the Almanac, the brewing company. They have several locations that apparently is just one. The Tunnel Vision West Coast IPA, but it's partnered with Original Pattern Brewing. So it's a West Coast India Pale Ale, double dry hopped with Mosaic, Awe Enigma, and New Zealand Nectaron.
This one's also somewhat Russian River adjacent, but a little.
It's a little bit fuller.
It's a little fuller, though, yeah. It's a little fuller and hazier.
Yeah, but no, you probably heard the New Zealand term, and you're like, oh no, here we fucking go again. Not getting the Simcoe funk.
It wasn't, they didn't dry hop it, so we're okay. Or
no,
wait,
no,
it's the boil. It's when you boil it. It's bad.
So it's good. Yeah, I've liked both of our beers this evening, and would definitely order them again, and would probably buy 4-packs of them and have no problem with it. So, yeah, it's tasty. Anyways, let's talk about Fellowship. I don't know if there's a ton to talk about with Fellowship, but let's talk about what it looks like in today's context. I mean, talk about it, what originally we're talking about. What does it look like? I think it's huge for our world.
You want me to talk?
Yeah, I figured.
Okay, I would say
you were ready.
So again, if you look at the church, where the church is today is sort of, just practically speaking, and not to beat a dead horse, but sorry. I mean, this could basically be called the subtitle of this podcast. The show, not this episode, but the show is Home Church the Future. But the way we do church today is built on two models. One, a sort of agrarian model where every town's got a church. And I guess that just meant I wonder how that worked. Like if you're a town, were you all just Baptists, so you brought your own preacher? Or if you're a Methodist, you just sucked it up and listened to this godless Baptist preach, or the other way around? Or because, most small towns, not counting cities, you're not big enough to have more than one church. Now, obviously, towns got big enough where you could have multiple churches, but
Yeah.
in America, as we're from before the founding up through the 1800s, the church is kind of the center of town, whether you're a Christian or not, which is why Colton and I both bristle at the idea that America is this Judeo-Christian country. It isn't. I mean, not strictly speaking, not truly speaking. It is, culturally it is. It identifies as a Christian country and with Judeo-Christian values. But, everyone, it was assumed that anyone who was, if you were a upstanding good person, you went to church, whether or not you were a believer or not. It was just something you did. Then we start getting bigger. Towns are getting bigger. Cities are growing. Country industrializes. We get to the 20th century. Now we got churches that are more built on an industrial model, but again, they're still built on this sort of agrarian. Church is the center of everything that we do things. Why do I bring this up? Because that is generally fellowship for a lot of Christians is fellowship is a church. It happens around church. I mean, some churches, they're very overt about it. There are a lot of small churches, like tiny churches.
Yeah.
That are of like 150 people or less, where they get together, they do church, meaning they do service, and then they stay together on Sunday. They have lunch. It's a potluck or whatever. And Sunday is a thing that's big in a lot of black churches. It's very much a big thing in like Pentecostal churches, small churches like that. That is the thing where fellowship is built around that. You get to a larger church like the church we were at before, the Baptist church, you still have those things, but they're more like big events. And that's what fellowship then becomes, these like quarterly events. It's a women's tea. It's a men's thing. It's twice a year thing where the members get together and that kind of thing. Oh, that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about membership. That's the third thing we're going to talk about.
Oh, yeah. And that's not a big one either.
And so fellowship is this thing geared around us doing things at church. And, it's not really doing church things at church. It's an excuse for everyone to bring their favorite potluck food, or, a dude to bring his chili, world famous chili, and, share a meal and have a good time. I think if you're a more, I don't know if I want to use the word mature. I think if you've gotten to a good place where you're not seeing church as strictly within the confines of your church, but you're taking it out of it and you're being proactive. Fellowship then become dinner in your house. It could become dinner with your friends at church. It could become dinner where you decide to host the college group at your house. Fellowship is you hosting high school kids at your house. Even if you don't have high school kids anymore, you just have a nice house where it's good to entertain.
Mm-hmm.
And fellowship becomes that. And then the extreme, and this is the really out of the box thinking that I think Colton and I really want to take hold, is fellowship's also you getting together at a brewery or whatever else. That is also time for fellowship. Fellowship doesn't have to be sharing concerns, questions about the Bible, prayer requests. It can just be hanging out, and in those situations, organically leading to discussions, questions, which I would say 2/3 of the meetings of our Fridays at the brewery this year have somehow spun off into discussions about Jesus, the church, that kind of thing.
I know this is going to... Well, actually, I'll get to that in a second. Well, no, maybe I could. Do you feel like that might be that the reason why that has been able to come up has been because of the lack of youngin, as we're
No.
called, presence.
No. Nope.
Well, I mean, okay, here would be my argument, which again, you can fully deny it or whatever. I don't have a problem. Like, I don't think that they're like, I don't know if they'd ask those questions if we were around. Like, Eric and I haven't been as present. Nolan's there, but Nolan's pouring beer, and so therefore he's not always able to be present. That makes up the three that are routinely at Kauai. And where it's like, hey, I've been meaning to ask you, kind of thing. And I mean, like, I don't have a problem with them asking. Like, maybe it's just, when those kids are around, you keep things more surface level. I feel that way. I mean, I feel like there are certain topics that I feel like some of us are more comfortable talking about with the whole group versus a select few. And I think that I don't think it's a bad thing that if those guys feel comfortable around you to just be like, yeah, seems like the opportunity to ask. I don't know. You're shaking your head no, and that's okay.
No, I'm emphatically saying no.
Okay. I don't know. I'm just
because one, Eric wouldn't say anything anyway.
It doesn't have to be about whether we'd say anything. It's just about, I don't know.
Nolan's been around when the conversations have happened. 1, 2, they don't normally come out because somebody asks a question. They just they somehow organically.
Okay. Just asking. That was all. I'm not sitting there and saying, "Oh, I'm not going to Kauai," so that way you guys can have genuine conversations.
No, I know, but I also want to make it clear, no, that has zero bearing on it at all.
Well, it wouldn't have affected my relationship with any of those guys or anything. I would have been like,
understand.
I just would have been curious. I just was like, oh, I wonder if they just feel more comfortable talking about that without like.
No, I think if anything, it's because
the way that you've made it sound, and I mean, like, I'm not saying that you've made it sound. I'm saying that it seems like those are kind of late.
They are late
evening Kauai conversations where it's just like the four of you having a conversation.
Okay, they are late, so it's usually because they are late, so it's not 6:00 conversation.
And don't get me wrong, Eric and I would already have been gone.
No, I know. I'm just trying to make it clear it has nothing to do with you guys. But
you're like 6:00. I was like, yeah, I leave when I go to Kauai. I'm gone by 5:30.
Yeah,
Eric's
but it wasn't
gone
like,
by
okay,
6,
finally Colton's gone, so we can talk about
No. I never would have thought that. I'm not. That's not even what's crossing my mind. I'm just more.
You
like,
and I know. Yeah. I know. I'm quite aware of what you're saying.
Oh, okay.
And I'm being emphatic because I'm not being emphatic because I feel like you are feeling that. I'm just being emphatic because no, that's absolutely not anything to do with it. It is. These conversations have mainly come up because one individual is in a Saturday morning group called Coffee and Cigars. And one of the participants in that Coffee and Cigars group is a pastor, a younger pastor of another church in our town. I don't know this individual. He seems to have the background of someone. He is the perfect pastor, it appears, for someone who is Jesus curious. And that's not the great best phrase. But someone who's looking to re-engage in his faith.
Sure.
And in fact, I've told this person, look, as much as we're having these conversations, and I enjoy having these conversations at Kauai and all that, like, lean on your pastor guy because he's a pastor and he seems like he's perfect for you from what I've been able to tell. So that kind of started the catalyst. And then the other friend who's also agnostic, sort of, whatever, has then also been engaging in those. And so it's just led to these various discussions that we've had. And then it's opened up the door for me to give Mere Christianity to one because he's very scientific and extremely rational thinking, if one can be extremely rational. One can't, but you know what I mean? Like he very much has a rational mind. And so since Mere Christianity is kind of laid out from a very rational enlightenment point of view of God and Jesus being a logical thing and not a spiritual thing, and also because it is written by C.S. Lewis, who came late to his faith and was a long time agnostic / atheist. I felt that this book would resonate with this person because they have similarities. So, and it's, it's so these are those things. This is where, yeah, I mean, this is sort of fellowship. So, and then now that our friend Brandon is showing up, that's leading to more discussions.
Oh, yeah.
Brandon's been fun to have around because on several occasions he's brought up, well, Tim and I were discussing this like 10 years ago, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, damn, I don't even remember. Well, one time I was like, I don't even remember having this conversation.
I love Brandon.
And then on like one or two other ones, I was like, oh, he remembers. Good, cool. And it's a lot of stuff that you and I, that's kind of the genesis for this whole show is just,
Talk about a guy that has the gift.
Deconstructing Americanism from your Christianity and a lot of that kind of stuff. So
talking about a guy that has the gift of gab.
Oh, yeah.
You get stuck. You talk to Brandon, you'll be talking with him for the next 4 hours.
Oh, yeah.
One of my favorite people on the planet. Also was my youth pastor growing up. He's just a great human being, sees the world in a great perspective. He'll challenge your way of thinking in a lot of different ways on a regular basis, but also be accepting. He's always been one that's never been a judger. Like, it's just not a part. If you were to ask Brandon about it, and I love it, and I kind of adopt it with a lot of my kids, he's just like, I don't have the energy for that.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't have the energy to give that. Like, you gotta, like, no matter what's going on in your life, it's like, I don't have the energy to judge you or to give any kind of whatever. Like, just let it go, man. Like, that guy had a California lifestyle living in Texas.
Oh, yeah.
A California mindset living in Texas and came over and was just, one of a kind, Brandon.
He would always tell his leaders, and I already had this mentality, so you didn't have to tell me twice, but he always told leaders underneath them, let your no be no and your yes be yes. Like, if someone doesn't like your answer, just be like, well, that's my answer. Like, I don't have to defend myself.
Yeah, he loved.
I'm just saying no.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's always like,
no, I'm not going to do that. Yep. Well, why not? Because just I'm not. Like, I just don't really.
I don't want to.
Who are you? Yeah. Who are you that I have to explain myself?
Exactly.
And who are you to get upset about it if I don't explain myself? It's just like, can we both just agree to be like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, I think so in the aspect of fellowship.
Wait, I just want to say real quick, it was fun at a cigar club. Again, at the brewery, last cigar club was at the brewery. It was fun to see Brandon bring up that the American Revolution was antithetical to Jesus and the New Testament. And I was standing there going like, see, I'm not the only one who believes this kooky idea. It's not just me, it's Brandon. And Brandon's like, well, you and I talked about this 15 years ago. I'm like, oh, don't let the cat out of the bag.
You're the one that actually convinced me of this. No, shut the fuck up.
Shut up.
No, say
no, you convinced me.
Yeah.
Liar. We both read John MacArthur at the same time. What are you talking about?
When he likes MacArthur.
Oh, we talked about that. We both agreed that we like and dislike MacArthur.
Yeah. Well, and he likes MacArthur from a preaching style. He likes the.
Oh, well.
He likes him because he's just like, yeah, I'm gonna read the scripture.
I'm gonna read the scripture and talk to you in depth about the scripture. And
yeah. Brandon likes large chunks. Like, if you ever go and watch a Brandon sermon, again, he's like, we're just gonna go through the Bible. Like, we're gonna
pick to do it.
We're gonna pick a book and we're gonna go through it.
That's the way to do it.
Here's a chunk of text, and we're gonna go and we're gonna break it down. And I mean, like, he's an English teacher, so he's like, yeah, this, and he was an English major in college, so
right.
Like that's his whole jam is just like, yeah, we're gonna break this down. So,
all right, fellowship.
I will say, I mean, Tim already was talking about fellowship, and I just want to kind of reinforce what he was saying. But I want to go in a different route, kind of in a ways. Fellowship is really, there is an importance to having a fellowship of believers around you. I will say that.
True that.
We're not meant to be on an island by ourselves. We need people that support us that are there to help us through that. And I do not mean to become a holy huddle where you are where it's this exclusive club or anything like that, where it's like, yeah, well, this is our hangout, like nobody's allowed in and that kind of stuff. Nope, that's not what I mean. But I mean that there needs to be time for you to engage with people that are going to push you in the direction of Jesus and what he wants for our lives. And if we don't do that, then we end up in really tough situations that are hard for us to get out of. We were never meant to do any of this alone. We are social beings. We require fellowship is just socializing with believers or with people outside of the faith. But again, I do think that there's good with fellowship specifically with believers.
Yeah.
With people that think like-minded and people that are going to push you in the right direction. I'm not saying that needs to be, and by no means actually should that be 100% of your time should be only with believers. But you should try to carve out some time and be intentional with that time, right? Like that's what we talked about with home church versus Kauai, where it's like, where if I'm being honest about, I do think that fellowship is happening at Kauai, but I think that a home church makes it where it's intentional. We need to be more intentional about our time with Jesus, where it's like, even, we're going to pray. We're going to talk about God for the next 45 minutes to an hour, and we're going to designate time for that. And fellowship, that's not necessarily what it's about. It's about relationship. How you doing? How's life? Man, dude, that's really sucky. And it can happen in home church, but it can also happen outside of. And so, again, I think that it's crucial for us to have as believers, but is it necessary to your faith? No.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, it's kind of, what's the term? It's like primary, secondary kind of thing, where you're gonna experience a lot more difficulties to where is like in the context of if you believe in sanctification, which we didn't necessarily fully define, but I will, but we did say that, okay, so if you believe in sanctification, is it crucial to your sanctification? No. But is it good for your overall spiritual, mental, physical health? In my opinion, yes. It's kind of like,
I think necessary is the right word, but it's not necessary in that if you don't have fellowship, you're not saved. But it is necessary. I think it's...
Well, and I mean, again, I'm the type that doesn't believe that saved is, I know. Can you survive without it? Yes. But will you be better off with it? Absolutely.
Can you be a Jesus follower without it? Yes.
Yeah.
You're going to really struggle if you're not engaged in it. A couple more thoughts about fellowship that I thought of because of what you were saying. One, I would say if you're a new believer and all of your friends are, let's just use an extreme example. Let's just say you're a gang member. Let's say you're a new believer and you come out of a lifestyle, your friend group is antithetical to Jesus. I'm not saying they're Satanists, but like they're skeptical, they make fun of, all that kind of thing. I would say for your walk as you're attempting to walk and follow Jesus, I think you need to throw yourself as much as you can into the fellowship of believers. Because one, they're going to be able to answer your questions. They're not going to be questioning the change that's happened to you. I'm not saying you have to like disown these people as your friends. But I would say more time spent with Jesus followers is going to help. She's under the bed, she's right here.
You need to go back. Where? Down here?
Well, she was.
Are we looking for JoJo?
Yeah.
JoJo!
She stole some.
Oh, did you grab food?
Mm-hmm.
I thought you were sleepwalking. I was like,
She was right here.
I was like,
I don't know where she is.
JoJo! JoJo, where are you? Man, I really thought she would come running.
By the same token, if you're if you've grown up in the church, all you know are church friends, your family's church, all that kind of thing, I just want to tell you, you're running the risk of being judgmental, not understanding how the real world works, not having empathy for people who seem like bad people, and you don't understand that generational sin, shitty family, those kind of things create quote unquote bad people.
Yeah.
And you really run the risk of not being empathetic. And so the antidote to you're the flip side of, if you're coming out of that and that's all you know, run for a while and like bathe yourself in believers for a while until you feel comfortable hanging around with your homies again or whatever. And then being able to like stand up to family or friends who aren't really down with this whole Jesus thing. But also, if you grow up in the church and that's all you know, just understand you're probably a judgmental little twit who doesn't know how the world works, understand why people are the way they are, and you probably should learn to meet and get to know people who are not believers so you have a little more empathy in your life. And I mean that with fellowship. So it's like, don't go off to a Christian college. Actually go to a secular college and learn how the rest of the world works and be like, oh, yeah, I have lesbian roommate. And it turns out, she's perfectly fine. And I still disagree with that. But she and I are friends. And it doesn't mean I've got Satan cooties on me anymore. Some of these other things. I know, a lot of kids, less and less kids live in that world anymore, but it still can be prevalent if you the more homeschooled you are or how much you spend your time at church, you can just really find yourself sheltered, and it ends up being a detriment to particularly if you want to be someone who's saving people. You're the last person they're going to listen to because all you do is sound like a judgmental goody two-shoes. Second thing is, when Colton's talking about fellowship and talking about struggles and all that, though, just to be clear, those discussions don't have to be involving what the Bible says or what some theologian says or some book you read. Like, those are just trust that the Holy Spirit is talking through you and letting you give that person good advice, or no advice at all. Just you're a sounding board. Someone just needs to say, I'm having a terrible week. I'm having a terrible month. I'm having a terrible year. I'm having a terrible time with my girlfriend or my boyfriend, or my marriage is not doing well, or I hate my boss, and just not say anything and just let someone talk about it. But just fellowship as believers doesn't have to be some spiritual moment where you say, well, in Ephesians, Paul says this, or to Timothy, he something said in an epistle or a gospel, and that's perfectly fine.
Yeah. I mean,
it can also just be fun.
Well,
I mean, if all you're doing is, I do want to be clear about this. If you want to call your group a fellowship group and all it is, like, oh, we're a Christian fellowship group, and all you're doing is having fun, look, that's just friends hanging out. That's not like Christian fellowship. Now, I don't mean to dissuade. That's not to say that Jesus has a problem with people having fun or experiencing life together, like golfing or whatever, is like to be diminished or poo-pooed or unbiblical. But, again, true fellowship, I think, should mean where every once in a while, at least someone should be able to feel it. And it doesn't have to be with the whole group either. I'm not saying like, there's a group of 10 of you and in front of all 10, you'd be like, yeah, so I have this problem. What do you guys think? It could be like, maybe you develop a friendship with one or two people within the group, and then they're your like sounding board for what do I do?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. So I think that's about it.
I think that's good.
Again, we in the church want to put everything into these little categories, and the church is bigger than church is not organized activities scheduled by professional pastors. It can be that. If that's what you want to get out of church, then that's what you can get out of church. That's what you can get out of community. That's what you can get out of fellowship. But it can be bigger and richer than that and much more organic and things you manage. You just like, I don't need a pastor to tell me like we're going to decide to do something.
Yep.
It was home church during COVID was us. It was just like, it was me and my wife saying, I can't do this anymore. I can't keep watching church on YouTube. We got to do something. And then I think talking to you and the Floreses and then just being like, who's interested in home church?
Yep.
And that can be fellowship within a church of like, hey, we had a group of people at our previous church. There was a group that all had the shared interests of riding motorcycles and stuff out in the desert, and they'd go out all the time. And you got the sense of when I went out there, they had a lot of fun riding motorcycles and whatever in the desert, but they also had a good time just hanging out. And I'm sure in a lot of those conversations that happened with those 20, 30 people, there were some meaningful fellowshipy moments from a Christian church perspective. All right. Is that it? I think that's it. Do you want to do membership real quick?
We could do membership real quick. I don't have much to say on it other than I did want to talk about it from the context of it is not required for your faith.
I would go so far as, so if you're not aware, a lot of churches have membership. Increasingly, churches are doing away with membership because it's
non-biblical?
Well, there's nothing biblical about it. It's very much membership is a man-made, it's a I would like to know.
Yeah,
I would like to know when membership started.
It exists in the Catholic Church as well. It's just like you have to go through catechism in order to.
That's true. It does. It goes that far back.
It just doesn't. But they don't call it membership there.
That's true.
But it's still, you have to go through X, Y, and Z in order enough to participate or be able to have. You can't get married in the Catholic Church unless you've gone through catechism. So like there's like elements of it where you can't do this, that, or the other until you've proven to us that you are, and memberships are often defined by baptism, based off of tithing sometimes, based off of attendance. Like there are different elements to membership. I remember I remembered that there was a particular staff member at the previous church that had a problem with a member of our church who did not attend regularly, but his children attended the youth group, being a part of the youth pastor search committee. But was like, well, because he's not there on a regular basis, therefore that's a problem, even though his kids were there every single week and he wanted to make sure that there was somebody that was going to be there that was going to be good for the kids. My father, I was like, this person had a problem with my father being on there, even though, again,
was Scott on there?
Yeah, he was actually one of the big advocates for BO because my dad was a part of the same running club as BO's dad.
Oh, yeah, because we had a couple in first. Don't remember their names. We had a young couple, and I think they didn't take the job.
Yes, Dad talked about that. But then also you said that,
and they seemed fine. And I actually liked them because I actually liked the idea of a young couple because I like the idea of a youth pastor having a wife so she could deal with females and him not deal with females, which I still think is and then Brian came along and Brian was great, and he was a fellow Bruin. He did not have a female with him, but anyway.
It's actually the female that took him away. We miss you, Dio.
It's, in fact, that's a whole other discussion. I'll say real quick. If you're running a church and you think paying X amount of money for your youth pastor is too much money, then don't whine and complain when all you do is hire young 20-something males as your youth pastor, and then you inevitably get yourself into trouble. And I'm not saying because these male youth pastors are a problem. I'm just saying you are putting young males who are age enough adjacent to female high school kids. That is a problem. So if you want to solve that problem, pay 30-year-olds to be youth pastors or late 20-year-olds who are youth pastors who are married, who then are a couple that can deal with these things. I don't know, because otherwise, I'm glad I'm not involved at all in running a church. You're just opening yourself up to freaking lawsuits or bad advice or I don't know. And if you don't do that, then very much make sure you have a group of female moms.
And here's what I've always been an advocate for when it comes to youth pastors, because again, as somebody who grew up in a youth pastor household and then became homeless and then my father believed that becoming a teacher was your best way out of it, and then became a youth pastor myself and got paid pennies on the
cycle
dollar.
of life.
Again, please pay them a living wage. Like,
yeah,
I was like, allow them to live, which they did for Brandon, or which they did for Brian. They didn't do it for anybody else.
No.
So there you go.
Yes, membership can be wild. If you're at a church and they're promoting membership, I would tell you don't sweat it. At the previous church we were at, I was in charge of changing the church bylaws, which is basically like the church constitution or the church corporate structure. And I very much intentionally basically made membership meaningless, because I think personally it's meaningless. I think it's a waste of time for the staff to manage who's a member and who's not. And I think also, like you said, it adds things. It creates the idea, I think, particularly to new Christians.
Yeah, it's barriers.
Apparently I'm not really a full Christian yet because I want to be a member. I've been coming here for 6 months, but because I'm not baptized yet, or if you're like at a Baptist church and they're uppity about it, that was the thing I did away with. I knew I couldn't convince the Baptists at the Baptist church that non-dunking was actual baptizing. So my way around it was eliminating the baptizing thing as a thing for membership, which is kind of wild because anyway, that was easier to do than say like whatever form of baptizing they did counts. But you're sitting there like, all right, well, I want to be, you might decide you want to be a member of the church, but I don't fit these 5 things. Does that mean I'm not really a Christian or what? It's dumb barriers to entry. And 2, again, if I was at the end of the day, these are, I'm sure if I really thought about it, there's probably, you could come up with some good reasons for it. It's not all some conspiracy. There's good reasons for maintaining membership. But at the end of the day, a lot of times it becomes very much a vanity play of, we have such and such members and we have added this number of members this year, even though half those members don't actually show up at the church anymore or are actively involved in the church, because no one's actually accounting for that. They're just accounting for who's a member. And then when they're a member, then there's someone you can put on the all of the lists to hit up for money and be thing for this thing and that thing. And so
it's just a tracking thing. Like that's all it is. Yeah.
Now that said, and so I would much rather churches do away with the membership. That's a meaningless thing. And instead focus on making involvement in focus on making it as seamless and easy for people to get involved and actually contribute to the day-to-day functioning of a church, because the church always will rely on the people who go there. You cannot run a church with just the staff. The staff are there to do things day to day, comply with government regulations, yada, 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 oversee things, but you're only as good as the people who volunteer and help out in everything from children's to even adult ministry. And too many churches focus on membership but not that. Who cares about, I mean, at the aforementioned church we used to go to, apparently they went back to making formal membership a thing.
Of course.
And the person who told me that was very proud of it. I apparently did not give them my poker face because they could see the derision on my face when they said that. Yeah, that was an insane goal. Gretzky would be proud of that. Gretzky, Lemieux.
I saw the pass from all the way, and I was like, "Here it is." Cue the Leonardo DiCaprio.
Is that in overtime?
Yeah, let's see. 3-on-3, baby. I know hockey purists hate 3-on-3, but it's really exciting and fun to watch. So yeah.
It's better than the NFL's onside kick. I mean, you know, I can think of a million things that the NFL and NBA have done that
those
are
crazy in the
terrible changes.
That's a good coach right there, crying, overcome with emotion. Anyways, I was like,
yeah, he's used to coaching females. He's got to show his emotion.
Wasn't he a male hockey coach before this? I don't know. Anyways,
I'm kidding.
No, you're fine.
That's
crazy about this. NHL does 3-on-3, by the way, but they do it for 5 minutes. Olympic before they go to shootout. 3-person shootout in Olympics is, up until this point, it's a 10-minute, I think, but then finals is 20 minutes of 3-on-3.
Good for them. I think that's the way it should be.
No, it was best on best 5-on-5.
Oh, best on. Okay, no, true.
We're
But if you
somebody scores on this thing.
True.
But the 3-on-3 is a lot of fun.
Honestly, that's why NHL has a hard time finding a TV partners, because they know when the playoffs come around, they might be stuck doing a 8-hour hockey playoff game. You know how much programming we're giving up for us to show this one playoff game that goes 4 overtimes? It seems to happen one playoff. They go like double, triple overtime. I don't think it does, but it seems like it does. One playoff season a year, NHL goes like double overtime in the playoffs. Extra 60 minutes with the interim, the breaks in between the two periods. But yeah, so if you hear about membership, it's not a big deal. Ignore it. If you're running a church, just get over it, man. It's just dumb. I mean, whatever. Don't call it membership. I don't. That is an easy way to not sound exclusive without having to do some of the dumb seeker-friendly stuff that churches do that just water down the gospel.
Yeah.
Like, that's just an easy one. Just get rid of membership. Like, you come. And also, and by the same token, usually go one way or another. Either get rid of it, or actually, if you're going to do membership, then truly do lean in. Like, if you want to claim to be a member of this church, and I think this is in defense of churches where they expect some amount of tithing and stuff like that. I think it's because if you want to claim that, then it's then you're all in on this church. I think that's the defense of it. I wouldn't go that route. Just let people do what they're going to do.
Yeah.
But if you are, then you're required to do X, Y, and Z in order to claim to be a member. Again, now that we've gotten away from being deacon at the Talladega Baptist Church, and you're the deacon and you're the owner of the Pontiac car dealership, I don't think those things matter anymore in the world we live in. You're not putting. Most of us don't live in. Well, if you live in a still tiny town, small town like that, then sure. But most of us a lot of Americans don't live in towns anymore where church membership or deacon or bishop or whatever term you want to have for being the head of a church, a layperson head of a church matters. And neither does membership. No one at the 4-H club or your local chamber of commerce is asking you, well, which church are you a member of? Like, no, we don't live in that country anymore. I think it probably at one point we did. Like, are you a member somewhere?
Yeah.
No, I'm not. Oh, okay. All right. Well, who knows what godless people they are if they haven't settled on a membership at some church. But again, as churches, let's not hold on to vestiges of years gone by just because it's still something we used to do. If it's not serving a purpose at all, and it's only creating a barrier to participating, then do away with it. And I do think the model today of get people involved in areas of the church where being a believer doesn't matter. So you're not going to put someone who you don't know about, who's not a believer, you're not going to stick them in children's group. You're not going to put them in the youth group. You're not going to have them lead a small group.
Right.
But if they want to drive, if your church is big enough and you got a big parking lot where you got a golf cart, have them drive a cart around. If you're not quite sure if they're a believer and your church has a security team. I was just telling one of our friends this a couple months ago where he was asking a friend of ours, hey, I see your friend showing up at church all the time. You know if he's like really interested in coming all the time? And our mutual friend answered the questions. I think he said, I think so. And I looked at our friend and said, hey, don't think of it that way. Go to him and say, hey, are you interested? You have a permit to carry. We have a security team on campus during church service. Are you interested in serving? Guess what? That'll get him to show up and his wife to go to church every Sunday when he's actually assigned to do it. That'll get him more involved. Like, show him that the church is interested in him rather than waiting for him to show interest in the church. And that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
So there's these areas where people are still Jesus seeking, or they're not quite sure yet if they're all in. Give them opportunity to do it. And one way to do that is not talk about stinking membership.
Yeah.
Because I'll finish on this. As the what was it? American Express card or Diners Club? One of those two. The tag phrase was membership has its privileges. It was American Express. Church membership has no privileges at all. There's none to be spoken of. So you're not going into the sanctimonious in the room behind the cross, buried behind the organ in the secret room where they hold the one piece of the original codex of the blah, blah, blah. There's none of that. There's no map to the chalice.
No. By Charlemagne. Audrey Hepburn.
In the bum. You were named after the dog.
No, we named the dog Indiana.
You know what? That movie is terrible, and the only reason why it's saved.
No, that movie is fantastic.
It is. By movie standards, it is terrible, but it is fun. It is a lot of fun, and Sean Connery saves it. Absolutely. If Sean Connery wasn't in it, you would agree it was terrible.
No, it's an Indiana Jones movie. They're all campy. Like, I don't know.
No, but that one's like the second one isn't very good. I hate the second one. The first one's fantastic.
Yeah, the first one's the best
and
one.
And the third one's good.
The third one's good. The second one.
But if Sean Connery, I overstated it. But if Sean Connery wasn't in it too, it'd be like,
yeah.
But he adds to it.
The tits now for.
They end up sleeping with the same lady, the same Nazi.
Oh, that's so great. Oh man, love that movie.
All right, we thank you for listening to this episode of Go to Hell Podcast. Rate, review, whatever. Please send us an email or comment. Tell us something we can talk about. And if you don't like Robert Duvall, you can definitely go to hell.